In the next series of videos, we're going to be talking about the buyer's order, which is found on the Selection for Vehicle Selection screen. Let's go ahead and pop it up and take a look at it. The buyer's order is a form. It will not look like this. This is an automated version with calculations and everything built into it. We're going to be showing a video to start with the dealer, vehicle, price data. Then we're going to bring back another video for the deal, trade, and allowance data, and then yet another one for deal finance data. The reason we're doing that is there's a lot to explain in each one of the sections of this buyer's order. Now, an actual buyer's order is an actual form, and it's a printed form that the dealer uses when they provide the information to you as far as what you're actually buying. Now, what they do is they wait until you get into the finance office where you're actually doing the contracts and all the paperwork for the purchase of the vehicle. In this application, what we're doing is we're getting a head start where we can actually do all this interactively as we're working on the purchase of the vehicle. You're putting information in based on the dealer and the other information that is in each section. And as you add it, it's going to calculate and show you the actual information that is required in order to provide the data that you need to figure out the deal as it's actually being conducted. Now, what I'm going to be showing you is something they will possibly show you, or they may just scratch it on a piece of paper. And it's a thing called the Foursquare. And I'm going to bring that up on the screen. What the Foursquare is, it's a piece of paper, and this is an interpretation of what is actually shown on the Foursquare. And what happens is these words here are telling you what they're going to put in the Foursquare. It could be in a different order depending on the dealer that you're working with. They may have put them in a different order. What we're doing is we're adding up information as the salesperson is talking to you. They're putting the interest rate in, and they may not use all these squares. They may use just part of it or all of it depending on how the deal goes. When you're doing it and setting up the deal, one of the things I mentioned earlier is that the interest rate is the order I put in because this is the interest rate you want, and I'm going to show you there. The interest rate in the buyer's order is actually this number here, and it says wanted interest rate. It's very important to understand that the interest rate that you're going to be getting is based on your credit application you put in. If you've pre-authorized this information to be done where you went to your local bank or whoever you're banking with, and you've got a pre-designation of what you can actually borrow based on the kind of money that you are able to get from the bank, it could be more or less than that depending upon the actual vehicle you select. But the principal thing you're looking for is an interest rate before you start working in these areas. Because if you don't have an interest rate established, the dealership can change the interest rate based on what they want to get back from the bank as far as a bump up. What is a bump up? A bump up is something where you give a monthly payment you want and you get the MSRP that you really actually want to pay for the vehicle. It's either the MSRP or buy at price. And then the buyer's offer is what you actually want. This is what, say for example, the MSRP or buy at price is something the dealer provides to you. And then you do like you did up here. You say, I want this interest rate or I want this price. This is what I really want to buy it for. And since this is a talking document that they use, you have your database that does all this for you and keeps it right in front of you so that if there's any misinterpretation by the salesperson or manager, you know immediately that they're varying from what you requested or you want to do. So it's very important that you understand how the Foursquare would work. Even if they do not present this information to you during the actual sale of the vehicle, because you have the buyer's order in front of you, you can now work that backward at them and you can say, I want this interest rate. I don't want to exceed this monthly payment. This is what I'll offer based on what you say the vehicle is worth. It's that simple. Even though it doesn't sound simple, when you get in and you actually start looking at how the numerics work as far as doing the database, you're going to be one leg up on the salesperson or sales manager because as you work on the Foursquare with the salesperson or manager, you have all the numbers already And if you've predetermined your interest rate, that's the one place they can really take advantage of you. The monthly payment is what it is. It's based on the actual buyer's offer, and we're going to see that when we do the buyer's order. The buyer's offer also includes all the financing and any add-ons or extras that you want to, minus the trade-in and whatever cash they're going to allow you from factory money or the dealer's money. And those are the kind of things they're going to put in this area. They're going to put in this, all those things as far as your buyer's offer. Then they're going to come over here and say, well, there's cash back from the factory. We're going to offer you a discount. Now, in the order that these are actually done, you establish your own interest rate. They may try to change it. You already have an idea of what you want for a monthly payment. That's something that you will offer to them, saying, I don't want to exceed that. But let me warn you, if you describe a payment, it has to be based on the offer that you have over here, plus financing, add-ons, and extras. For example, if they say, I want a monthly payment, or you tell them that you want a monthly payment of, say, $500 or less, and you put that down, they're going to try to meet that. They're going to try to meet that number based on how they figure out the financing. So you can tell them what you want to have for an interest rate based on your actual application you put in for credit. And the bank has already given you typically that. If you go to them first, they will tell you the interest rates you can actually use to finance that vehicle. The buyer's offer, that's you offering what you really want. So they're going to ask you what you really want down here as far as price and adjustments. This is the key one. When you get down to the last part of the purchase of the vehicle, you're going to be asking for an invoice. Do not do that initially. Do not offer a trade yet. Now, the buyer's offer is also going to include the trade-in, and that money is figured out on the buyer's offer when you're actually working with the dealership. Now, I don't want to go too fast. If you have one or more trade-ins, you need to actually document what you want for the trade, and as opposed to what they are going to offer for the trade. And that's going to cause some negotiation as far as that's concerned, because anything you get back from the offer of your vehicle, say for example it's paid off or not paid off. If it's paid off, you own the vehicle, they're going to use something like the Kelley Blue Book, and they're going to ask you to accept low offer. What is that? On a Kelley Blue Book offer, there is low book, high book. High book is right at retail what this vehicle should sell for. Low book is what they want to buy the vehicle for. You can always negotiate that price. For example, when we go to the buyer's order later, you're going to see where you can actually put in your buyer's offer for the trade, and they will try to come over here and say, well, this is what they will offer for it. And that's a negotiation that is something that you have to use some skill, where if you've already gone, say, to another thing like eBay, which I described earlier, and you've looked and saw what they're in your area, what their vehicles are actually selling for that are identical or close to what your vehicle is, that will give you a very good idea. If you want to spend a few dollars, you can go to the Kelley Blue Book, which we included in the information on the select buyer information. You need to have a little help using the Kelley Blue Book. It is a little difficult to use and may be an issue with you, because there are all the equipment that is included in your current trade-in that's going to adjust to show you the value of that trade-in. So it takes a little bit of maneuvering and doing some things as far as negotiating. But nevertheless, say for example, you did go to eBay Motors and you found what your vehicle might be selling for across the area that you live in. And that gives you a pretty good benchmark of what people will pay for that vehicle, as far as if you offered it on a website and somebody went in and said, I'll pay this for it, and negotiated it. Well, the same thing happens on eBay Motors. When you're looking at it, you'll see what people were trying to sell their vehicle at and what they wanted for it. And then when you go to that little thing down at the bottom on the left-hand side and you see what things were selling for, that is the key. That gives you the opportunity to know what the actual vehicle is selling for in the market. So you need to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row when that comes up. So let's go to the first section, going back to the buyer's order. And you're going to see the things I talked about. First of all, you put in the dealer's name. And I just put test dealer. It didn't have to be anything significant. You're going to put in you as the family that's buying this vehicle. The stock dealer number is from the individual vehicle that you want to pick and negotiate on, and it has the stock number for it. You want to ensure that, say for example, if you did a check on the website for the dealer, that whatever stock number you were interested in is now here, and you verify that with a salesperson that that is the vehicle that you're negotiating with, because it has the package and things that you want on the vehicle as you described it, or it was described on the website when you looked it up. The dealer's address and state, city, and zip is important for information as far as documenting where you bought the vehicle and what the offer was. Now, because there are multiple screens in here as far as being able to do the offer, if I go down, I'm going to show you, you can do a number of offers. In other words, here's another record where you can do a different offer and come at this from a different direction. If you went to a different dealer now and you had all your information in here for a previous offer that you made as far as your buyer's offer, you would have all the data in there. Say, for example, I went to XYZ dealer and I could not negotiate what I wanted. I could take all the data and the way that we created the buyer's offer and then turn around and use that at the next dealership you go to. Now, in some cases, people do not want to go to more than one dealership. It's important. This is a lot of money. You're looking in this particular case, it's a $32,000 vehicle, and you're going to save $3,400 on that vehicle if you use an invoice, and we're going to be talking about that. And then here's the invoice price. When you put this in, it's going to calculate that for you as far as what you're going to actually have. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth before we get down there. You want to make sure also that you have copied the VIN, and this is going to be important information. If you needed to later on and you wanted to go back, you didn't finish the offer and you wanted to go back and look at the equipment information and you don't have the actual sticker, the one that comes on the vehicle, you can put this in that website that we talked about and it'll come up with the sticker information if you wanted to compare it to a different vehicle at a different dealership. And you would need a Wi-Fi or 3G connection, 4G LTE, in order to use the application live out in the world. So this is something you can either use on your iPhone or, and on the iPhone I want to point out that it'll probably have to scroll up and down to see the whole screen, but nevertheless you can enter all the information in there if you're using your iPhone as your primary app that you're using this on. Realize that if you have an iPad and you're using it, this information in here is all live data. As you add it, it's going to update. It's not going to be something that you have to be online in order to do it and have a Wi-Fi connection. So your data that you're working with live is fine. You don't have any problems with that. If you're going to go out and look at a website, for example, to go look up this, you're going to have to find a Wi-Fi connection to be able to do that. That's possibly something that you can do on your phone if you had an iPad with you, or you can do it from the phone and go out and look as far as that website is concerned. Usually on a phone, obviously, you can pick the website you want to do, look at, and go ahead and get that information. Let's talk a little bit about dealer vehicle price data. One of the most important things that we were showing in the Foursquare was the MSRP. This is the actual window sticker price, usually that's up on the upper right-hand side of the window sticker. And what it's doing, this is the price that they're asking the public to pay for that vehicle based on the base price of the vehicle and all the add-ons and packages that are included in it would summarize to this. Now, this is part of the education you have that is very important. When you are going into a dealership, I've touched on it, but I'm going to touch on it in big time now. You can request either at the dealership or through the internet desk for an invoice. And what the invoice is the vehicle invoice is what the price that the dealer minimum he would want to sell this vehicle at. That doesn't mean that the vehicle itself cannot be sold for less. It just depends on how you negotiate the price at the dealership. In particular, if you're looking at the invoice, that tells you a baseline that vehicle could be sold for from the dealership. This is the MSRP. When you put the MSRP in and then you put the invoice number in, this is going to tell you the difference, MSRP minus the invoice price. So what you're looking at is MSRV, which is the vehicle minus the invoice. Okay, and that particular number is the value that you want to retain without having to pay for it. Understand that if the invoice is less than, or it can be up and down depending on what it is, the invoice number that the vehicle can be sold for, when they show it to you, you're going to be looking for that invoice price. Type that in there. It'll calculate this. If you're going to add things to the vehicle, say for example the vehicle does not come in the package with floor mats, and you want floor mats, you would negotiate that and make a note over on this side over here what the actual value of that item is as far as the buyer's options. So you would put it in there and say, okay, well, I want the following at this price. And you don't, things like floor mats, be aware, you do not have to pay full price for them. In fact, what you're going to like to do is try to get them to throw them in for free. If you negotiate that, it really depends on how much leverage you put on the dealer or salesperson or manager to get all the things you want at whatever price you want them. Okay. So in this particular case, what we're looking at is if you can get the invoice, and this is where you want to buy the vehicle, add invoice price plus any ads that you add, and then your trade-in and stuff will come in later. You want it at this interest rate. Now looking back at the Foursquare, you can see what's happening here. We've already got our interest rate. We have not talked about monthly payment yet, because as you get closer to finance, you're going to see that you may be offered some things. Either if you take them and add them into your financing, that's one thing, or if you do not finance them, that it's whatever that monthly payment will be in order to pay off the loan on a whatever annual basis that you pick, like 60 months. The buyer's offer, you're going to want to put in your own information as far as what the offer is, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, going back over to the buyer's order. So we typed in whatever interest rate we want. The price sum is based on the MSRP minus the invoice, so it's $3,400 taken off this, and then any ads that you add will come back in and be added to the price sum. Then what you can do is you can come back in, even though you have picked up these items, and you go back to the Foursquare where I had the buyer's offer, and you might want to say, okay, well, I want $600 off. So you type in what you actually want to pay for it. So in this case, $29,000 minus the $600, and then this shows the discount that you want. It'll calculate this for you. It'll say that $29,600 at $29 is $600 more that you're going to receive. So let's look at the numbers the way we worked them. $32,900 minus invoice. We're going to save $3,400. We're going to try to write off the cost of whatever the ad is. Now, if you buy a lot of ads, for example, there are things like if you have an XM or some kind of radio that is in the car, and you have to have a annual fee for that, and it's an add-on, you want to make sure that that is in here, and you ask the dealer, are there any additional costs that are not included on the car window sticker? And of course that would be things like a radio annual thing, or say for example he has a navigation system on it and there's an annual fee for that. Well, that is an add-on. You need to ask and find those, and then annotate over here on the buyer's options to make sure that you included the value for those, and then you put the actual value of what those add-on prices actually were. And you can see where when I came down here, I wanted $600 off in addition to what I'd already included, and then you can adjust this whatever you want as far as the discount off this $29,600 price. And by looking at this, you'll see that the buyer's discount was $600 if you buy it at invoice. If you did not put an invoice in there and you just took that dollar's value out, then you're buying it at the MSRP price. That's not something you want to do. That's very difficult to keep track of too, also when you're working in the deal, that the information that you're working with is identified exactly as far as what the options are, that the add-ons are, and so forth like that, and then calculating the actual MSR value that you want to reduce the actual vehicle by. Okay, now typically when we do this presentation, there are other factors that are included. You want to put anything that is sort of a obscure thing that they're asking for or whatever, you want to put it in here so that you have a record of that data. Now, at this point in the actual negotiation with the dealership, this is pretty straightforward stuff. I want to point out, if you ask for an invoice and they do not want to provide you the invoice and the invoice pricing, get up and leave. The reason for that is the dealer is not negotiating good faith. He's trying to take a full load, everything that's on the vehicle. You can always come back in and make an, if you don't have a number here, you could always come back in and make an offer at a certain price. But it's only fair that you know what the invoice price is on this. Now, this is not something a dealer wants to share with you. They will avoid at any cost telling you what the invoice is. Other dealers that just want to, what we call move metal, will say, fine, here's the invoice, you read it, you figure out what you want to pay for it. And the invoice includes all the extras, the package, everything that's supposed to be on there, minus those add-ons that they don't tell you about, like radio and navigation or whatever. So you have to ask for those. Okay, so here we are at this point. We've learned an awful lot, and we're working on the top level of the Foursquare. And if I go back to the Foursquare, we've covered interest rate. We have not covered monthly payment. We've taken some data and given them some data based on the MSRP and buyer's price. And then you kept in mind that with the invoice and the calculations you have, what the actual value is that you want to offer for this. So the buyer's offer is being negotiated as you go. Keep in mind that we still have another part of that. That is your trade-in values. And that's stuff that you have to negotiate in the next step. So for example, if we come back over to the buyer's order, we're going to be doing a dealer trade, in this case, and the allowance data, and we're going to be working this. That'll be the next video that we're going to go to from here. So let's go ahead and leave the screen and go back in and look at that in the next video. Thank you.